if you're interested, if you really want to read about how people can get to be on death row innocently, I highly recommend Brian Stevenson's book, Just Mercy. There's also a really interesting book by John Grisham, An Innocent Man. And what's really fascinating about that book is it shows you the process by which a person got convicted, was on death row, and then DNA released them. And it tells you the story of another person who almost a very, very similar process, and the only difference was there was no DNA evidence. That person is still in jail. Can you justify capital punishment knowing that for a certain category of defendant, for every 100 of them that are killed, more than 5 of them, and it's going to be considerably over 5 of them, are innocent?
Another misconception that I hear a lot is, that it has to be the worst of the worst that get it. It has to be the serial murderers, for example. But I think people in Washington State kind of know that isn't actually the way it plays out many times. One of the things that, after reading all the trial reports that have been produced in Washington State since 1984, alerted me to is that the handful of serial murderers that we've had did not get the death penalty. And I suspect that part of why they didn't is because they had information about where their victims' bodies were. And the family members desperately wanted that information, and they were able to, I think, trade that information for not having to face the death penalty. So it isn't necessarily the worst of the worst that end up on death row.
I don't believe the death penalty is a deterrent generally. I don't believe it deters anybody who would even contemplate committing a capital offense in the first place. It's not necessary in order to individually incapacitate the defendant who has committed a crime. Our prison systems today, our modern prison systems, while not necessarily the greatest place to live and survive, I think are perfectly capable of ensuring the safety of the people within the prison system. Life without parole is available as a possible punishment for people who commit atrocious murders, and therefore that person will not be in society for the rest of his or her life, and therefore is incapacitated and will not individually commit another serious crime. On a more gut level, I've always been opposed to bullies and bullying, and this is just the ultimate form of somebody with extraordinary power saying, I'm going to do this to you because I can. And on a gut level, it just has never felt right to me.